Professor of Constitutional Law at the State University of New York, Mark Meirowitz, joins us live from there now. Thank you very much for your time, first of all, Mark. Now, this war of words between China and the US, it's certainly hotting up here. China doesn't appear to be backing down. So what happens next?
Look, there's a hot war of words between China and the United States, and there's a hotter war of words going on in Washington, D.C. among the different leaders in the Trump administration. That one's even more interesting because as far as believing what China has to say, I don't believe anything that China has to say. And I promise you they will come and negotiate because their economy is in a shambles. So there's no way they can live with 104% tariff tax. Forget about it. And Trump is making a message to China, which, by the way, at the same time as it's doing what it's doing, which is dumping products on the United States, cheap products on the United States, is also acting militarily to militarize the South China Sea, to challenge Taiwan, and to do all sorts of nefarious things in the world. So while the president can't attack China militarily, he can certainly push back on them on trade. Here in Washington, D.C., we've got Musk fighting with the president's economic advisor, Navarro, and calling him a moron. Can you imagine that? Because Musk is a free trade guy, and he wants a zero tariff. And we had the same type of thing going on. To your question earlier, what do Americans think? The senators and congressmen are getting tremendous pushback from their constituents whose stocks are going down, their retirement accounts are going down. And Senator Tom Tillis just a few minutes ago was at a hearing with the nominee for the trade representative, Jamison Greer, and he said, and I quote, "Whose throat do I get to choke if this proves wrong?" In other words, the senators and congressmen, even the Republicans, are willing to go with Trump on this, but they want to figure out what's going to happen if it goes wrong and if the market really tanks and if we end up in a recession, which is definitely possible.
Mark, markets had done better today, certainly over this way in Europe, after days of losses. But we've just seen the impact that a change of an hour can make on the US markets, as we heard there from Frank Uciado. Analysts rightly urging caution here, aren't they?
Well, but you see, the idea of this is to stimulate deals. For example, Netanyahu was there with Trump and they said, we're making a deal. And the idea of this is to make the deals. And as the deals are made, then the effect of the tariff will hopefully be lessened and maybe dissipate. That's at least a strategy of the Trump administration. They want these countries to come to Washington, to Trump. We're going to make a deal. Remember, this is Donald Trump. Let's make a deal. Remember, that's his TV show. Let's make a deal, The Apprentice. So he wants to make deals. And I do think that this type of strategy either might work, so people will make deals, or it might be a disaster. The Wall Street Journal was very unhappy about this, obviously, because what's happening in the markets. Yes, the markets are volatile. They go up and down. But the trending so far has been down, and that affects people's retirement accounts. And that is people running to their congressmen, screaming and shouting. Interestingly enough, back to Musk. Yes, please.
Let me pick you up on the deals, because the White House earlier saying that 70 countries have reached out seeking tariff deals. Do we know any more details? Which countries? Is it looking optimistic here?
I don't know the details on which countries. I say Israel is making a deal. I'm sure a number of these countries, but I think he's also got to fix the structure of this because, for example, Vietnam took over a lot of the Chinese trade, and then Trump hit them with a gigantic tariff. So the way the tariffs were set up and also the chart that the president prepared wasn't absolutely accurate in terms of what the tariffs were from these countries and why we should reciprocate against them so strongly. Also, we're really hitting tariffs on allies of the United States. I think you talked about South Korea, Japan, and so forth. So we need to be targeting the right targets and not hurting our own allies. So there's a big story here. I think back to Musk and Navarro, if I may, that really the whole capsule of this whole thing, Navarro says Musk likes to assemble. He assembles cars with parts from foreign countries. And Musk says, oh, this guy Navarro is the trade representative. He's just a moron. He's not smarter than a sack of bricks. I think that's a microcosm of the bigger debate that's going on here between having free trade. Indeed, Musk posted on social media a story about a pencil. Now, I know this sounds crazy, but it's Milton Friedman saying, here's a pencil. The tip of the pencil comes from one place, the eraser from another place, the wood from another place. That's because this pencil is indicative of free trade and global trade. This is actually a 2-minute social media post by Musk. Musk putting himself forward as an opponent of the Trump policy, I think, is going to accelerate his departure from the administration. Yet at the same time, it's highly risky.
Risky indeed, and a great analogy there, Mark. Just how concerned will businesses, in particular here in Europe and the UK, be of these cheap Chinese goods that could potentially start flooding into the market over this way? Chinese goods that were destined to the US. What are we looking at here?
Put on your tariffs. Go ahead. Go do the Trump thing. I absolutely am sure, well, as sure as you can be in politics, that the Chinese, because, the Chinese statement, the official Communist Party statement was about the tariffs was, the sky won't fall. But since I'm reading it in China, that means they're really worried about it. And I think that they're going to make a deal. There's no question about it. The United States and China have been at loggerheads, but never at 104%. How can they withstand that? Their economy is not strong. They have high debt. They have not recovered from the pandemic. They have tremendous monetary and financial problems. They can't withstand this. And I think what happens with China will be indicative of how this whole tariff thing is going to play out. To me, the tariff program really is China. It isn't really against many of our allies. It's to try to create a manufacturing sector in the United States. This is Trump's idea. He says, and his advisors say, America doesn't produce anything. All we're doing is getting goods from other countries, and we're not producing anything. So there's a whole change in the American economy that needs to take place in order for this to be successful. And that is a gigantic risk.
Mark, thank you very much. Really appreciate hearing your assessment of everything that's going on at the moment. Mark Meirowitz speaking to us live there from New York.
Thank you very much.